And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again today, and today we're looking at one of my favorite games. We're going to take a look at Brass. Now the theme, I really don't even know what the theme is. I know you're building industries, I know you're connecting them. I'm not big on themes, so it doesn't really matter to me, but it might matter to some of you guys. Anyhow, why don't we take a look at this game? It's going to be a game for 3 to 4 players. It's going to play in probably about 2 to 3 hours, so it's a long one, and it really is a brain burner. That said, let's take a look at what's inside this box and how the game plays. So inside the box, the first thing you get is this really nice matte board. It's big, and it's got pretty much all the information on it that you're going to need in order to play the game. So let's take a look at the center here. You have all these different cities, Cologne and Burnley and all these places, and they all have indications on them as to different industries that you're going to be able to build there. So you can see these things down here are cotton mills. You can see little coal mine things here, coal indicators. These little factory-looking things are iron mills. And there's ports and shipyards. And these are all things that you're going to be trying to build throughout the game in order to earn income, which allows you to build more things, which you'll be trying to manipulate in order to earn victory points. Along the board, you can see this numbered track here. And this is going to be a multi-purpose track. The first thing it does is it allows you to track your income, which you'll be earning each turn. Now, it's not always going to be income. You may lose money, but typically you're going to be trying to stay somewhere in the blue area here and to earn enough money in order to benefit you for the future turns. Second, since the game is divided into 2 ages, this will also actually serve as your victory point counter. And you'll score victory points at 2 points throughout the game, at the end of the first age, which is called the Canal Era, and at the end of the second age, which is called the Rail Era. Third, you can see here that there's this little indicator here, which has spots for different cubes. And the cubes are going to be iron and coal. Coal will be black cubes, and iron will be orange cubes. And these are going to be resources that you use to build things on the board. At the top right of the board here, you can see that there's a track for the players, and there's also 4-player colored boxes here, which are saying amount spent above them. This is actually going to determine player order, as the amount of money you spend on your turn will determine what order you go in on the next turn. So the person who spends the least money on their turn will go first, while the person who spends the most money will go last. You see that there's this cotton demand, and this is going to be a source of selling cotton for players who may not want to sell to ports that are on the board, which will be locations for selling cotton. It's often to your advantage not to sell to a port, especially if you don't have your own port, and thus you can sell to what's called the distant market. And the distant market is going to be areas like Yorkshire here, which you can see is not an area you can build on, but is an area that has a port indicator. If you're connected to these distant markets, you'll be able to sell your cotton to the distant market using the distant market tiles, which will be located in the bottom right-hand corner of the board. Also located on the left side of the board here, you can see that there's various indicators for the prices of things, telling you how much canal and roads or rails cost to build, an area for cards, and just generally all of the information you need to play the game. So here's the board somewhat set up for the beginning of the game, but first let's go over some of the other components that you get. So first you get some plastic money, and you can see there's both a gold and a silver money. It's not bad quality, but it's not great, it's plastic, but it functions just fine. Additionally, as I mentioned previously, you're going to have something to track the demand of coal on the board, and I'm going to throw it on the floor, but you have something to track the demand of cotton in the game, and it'll move down as people sell to the distant market. The aforementioned distant market tiles are located at the bottom left, and you can see on them, as you flip them over each time that you sell to the distant market, you're going to see the values go down, or sometimes it maybe go down more, -3, -4, or it can potentially stay the same at 0. The cubes that I mentioned previously for both iron and coal have been stocked in the demand areas, and you can see that at certain points during the game, if you're connected to a port, or for iron even if you're not connected to a port, you can purchase these things at the values listed at the left. So the first 2 will cost 1, the second 2, the third 3, and the fourth 4. And if you run out, you can actually purchase additional for 5. These will be important resources, and as I mentioned, coal always has to be transported to wherever you're trying to build via either a canal or a rail, whereas iron seems to be magical and floats from one point to another, automatically getting to wherever you need it. Finally, as I mentioned previously, there are cards, and these cards are going to be used to take your actions throughout the game, and each round you're going to start with a certain amount of cards. So at the beginning of the game you start with 8, and you'll be using these to take actions throughout the board, to build things in different cities, or to build specific types of industries, or to take various other actions. So the first type of card is going to be area cards, and you can see these will name a city specifically. So for example, this one names Ellesmere Port. And Ellesmere Port is located on the board at a lower spot, and it's actually indicated on the card, so you can see directly on the card where these places are going to be located. And what these are going to do is they're going to allow you to build directly into that city, regardless of what you're trying to build, as long as you can get the required resources there. Now, Ellesmere Port only contains a spot for building a port, so essentially, the only thing this is going to allow you to do is build a port here, or be used for one of the various other types of actions you can do in the game. The other types of cards are, for example, industry cards, and you can see this one here actually depicts a port, so this would work for building an Ellesmere Port as well. Now, the caveat is that in order to build using an industry card, you're going to have to be already connected to the location where you would like to build. So, for example, if I wanted to build an Ellesmere Port, I would have to already have built a canal link from either Warrington and Runcorn, or from Norwich down here at the bottom, in order to get into Ellesmere Port. I guess I could also build from Liverpool. Each turn you're going to get 2 actions, and so your action choices are as follows. The first thing that you can do on your turn, as I mentioned, is to build an industry, and each action will take a card. So essentially you're going to need a card either matching the industry you'd like to build, so for example, a cotton card or a coal card or a port card, or you're going to need a card matching the city you would like to build in. And you're going to discard that card, and you're going to pay the cost for building that industry. The second thing you can do on your turn is to build links between areas to connect them. And to do so, you must already be in one of the 2 areas, or built into one of the 2 areas via a link that you're trying to build from. So for example, to build from Blackburn, I must already be connected either from Burnley or from Wigan to build out into another area. In the first link, you're going to be doing this using canals, and you'll just discard any card to do so. And in the second age, you'll be using it to build rails, which will cost more money and will cost additional resources. The third thing you may do is develop, which allows you to get rid of industries that you don't want to have anymore on your board. You will want to get rid of some industries that may not be able to be built in the first age, or that can't be built at all, in order to build ones beneath them. The fourth action you can take is to sell your cotton, and selling cotton has to be done from a cotton mill that's unflipped, meaning that it hasn't yet sold its cotton, to either a port or to the distant market via one of these areas on the board. Finally, on your turn, you can actually use one of your actions to take a loan, and taking loans will decrease your income, but it will provide you money instantly. Each player is going to have a set of tiles, and they're in stacks, and they represent the different types of industries that you can build. So we have cotton, coal, iron, ports, and ships. And you can see that most of these have levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there's some important things to notice on these tiles. One is that at the top right-hand corner, they have the price required in order to build this. So for example, to build this level 1 cotton, you're going to have to pay 12 pounds. Additionally, in the bottom right corner, you can see that this can only be built during the canal era, which is indicated by this little symbol which represents one of these canals. At the bottom left corner, you can see that this is a level 1 cotton mill. Level 1 industries may all only be built during the canal era, and you'll see that all of these have the indicator saying so. Once all of your level 1 industries have been built, you may move on to building level 2s, and you'll see that the costs change somewhat. So the monetary price goes up. This now costs 14, and it's going to require a coal to build. Third requires both a coal and an iron, and 16 money, and the fourth will require 18 and a coal and an iron. The objective of building cotton is, as I said earlier, to sell it. And when you sell a cotton to a port or to the distant market, you're going to flip it over on the board, and you're going to see that it's going to provide one thing, 5 income, so this will move your income track up 5, and that will provide you 3 victory points indicated in this hexagon when we go into scoring at the end of an age. Coal, again, you build it, and it's going to have a little bit of a different feature on the tile. You can see here we have all the usual features, the cost, the eras it can be built in, and then at the top left you see a number 2 in a gray box, and this is how many coal cubes will go on it when you play this on the board. When all of the coal is gone from a coal tile, it will flip over, and you'll earn income, 4, and 1 victory point. Iron requires coal to be built, the money, and then there's a number 4 in an orange box in the up left-hand corner, and this is going to indicate how much iron comes onto the board when you play this tile. Ports, as I said earlier, are used to sell cotton, and these will flip when you sell cotton to them, providing income and victory points. Finally, we have shipyards, and shipyards are somewhat of an exception to the rule, because there are level 0 shipyards, and these level 0 shipyards can never be built on the board. You must develop them, as I said earlier, and now I have the level 1s. And the level 1 shipyards are going to be able to be built in the canal era, and level 2s can only be built in the rail era, so only after the first half of the game is done. They require iron, coal, and a significant amount of money, and when they flip, which is immediately once they're placed on the board, they provide a little amount of income, but a large amount of victory points. So the game will continue, each player taking 2 actions on their turn, the player order changing depending on how much money each player spends, until the deck is exhausted and everybody plays all of the cards from their hand. So you're going to take 2 actions per turn, then you're going to draw back up to 8 cards, and play until all of your cards are gone. You're trying to get the most industries on the board and get them all flipped before the era ends in order to get victory points, at which point you'll wipe the board of all level 1 stuff and start all over again in the rail era. Now, as I said earlier, I know what the theme is. The theme is completely irrelevant to the play of the game. This game is basically an exercise in math, and I love that personally. Now, if you're not a big fan of math, or you're not a big fan of themeless games, or games where the theme is completely irrelevant to the play, you're not going to like Brass. I'll let you know that right off the bat. You'll hate it. But if you're one of those people who loves Power Grid, or you love Age of Steam, or you love any type of train game, or themeless Euros that are, they're themed, but it's just kind of pasted on, something tells me you'll be a big fan of Brass. It's got a lot of strategy, it's got a lot of math, there's a lot of depth to it, and there's actually a deceptive amount of player interaction. Now, it's never direct player interaction, but it is the type of interaction where you're like, well, if I build into this area before so-and-so, they won't be able to build in, and they won't be able to place down their shipyard, so they won't get 18 points. It's cutthroat, it's mathematical, it's strategic, it's great, it's probably in my top 2 or 3 games, and I would suggest it to anybody who's a fan of heavy Euros, but I would not suggest it to those people who are thematic or less mathematical gamers. So if you like Euros, if you like heavy games, check out Brass. It's something you definitely will love.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.